Hey everybody, it's Sophie and Marco Dish on the Movies. And guess what? Today we are actually reviewing a movie called Road Games with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis. It was made in Southern Australia in 1981. And it is a light horror serial killer movie made in 1981, like I said. I didn't even know where it took place until Stacy Keach, who plays an independent truck driver named Quid, respond to a comment about his dog. Quote, "He doesn't bark," says Quid, "because he's a dingo." I have never heard of anyone training a dingo which was very well trained and friendly and actually played a significant role in some of the action and story in the movie. In fact, I'm not really sure if it was a dingo because he kept making this point about him not barking, and in the end the dog barks and he's like, "What? You bark?" And he said, "I guess you're not really a dingo." And I don't think he was, because I looked them up and they're kind of like a wild dog, but they're not really. They don't want to classify them as that because landowners might kill them and just kill them all off. And they want them like a protective species or something. It's all up in the air, so I can't really say anything definite. Okay, well, the story is this truck driver who's Quid, and he just picks up this big load of meat in the semi. It's pig meat, and he's ferrying it across the country. His dog Max, I think.
No, his dog's name is Boswell.
Boswell. I don't know why I thought his name was Max, but he sits with him in the cab while he plays a harmonica using a hands-free hookup and sings and talks while driving. On the way, he stops overnight in a motel and sees a girl who's dressed like a hooker. You know, short skirt or short shorts, a hat, you know. It's just she looks like a hooker. She's with this guy in a van, and while the van guy checks in at some point, he just kept staring at Quid, and he never says a word. In fact, in the whole movie, he never says a word. Weird. It's kind of like that Dr. Phibes movie with that assistant who never says a word. So I don't know if that's some kind of a thing then or not.
Olivia!
Yeah, well, he doesn't even say a word. Nothing. He doesn't even have a reaction except a mean-looking face. So, since the van guy took the last room, Quid is forced to sleep in his cab. During the night, he wakes up from hearing a big noise and sees the van guy chasing a woman and gets out, but nothing else happens and he doesn't see them again.
Wait, what?
They were running around. There was I thought he saw them running around the parking lot. No, I think so. I'll look it back up.
No.
Okay. So we have a disagreement about that. But anyway, he hears a noise, he doesn't see anything.
No. He doesn't hear any noise.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Quid?
The noise that he hears is probably the garbage truck. And then he wakes up and he sees the garbage people picking up garbage. And his dog is over eating at the garbage. And I'm not going to go through the rest of the whole movie like people can't watch it by themselves.
Okay, well, Quid continues driving. He passes by a cast of road characters, a guy pulling a boat, and a family where the wife seems to be out talking her husband and their kids are in the back seat misbehaving and making faces at the truck driver through the window. As he moves forward, he sees the van driver burying something at the side of the road. This is further into the movie. He slows down and the van driver hurriedly snatches a red cooler, shoves it into his van, and drives away. On the radio,
The lunchbox,
on the
technically.
yeah, well, on the radio, and I'm not talking about the CV. I'm talking about the not. It's kind of like a big transistor radio. He hears about Quid hears a news story that a girl was murdered overnight, and from then on, the van driver, after seeing Quid, seeing him try to bury this container, he begins to harass Quid. Every time he goes into a gas station or any place, he shows up there. He doesn't really say anything to him. He doesn't park next to him. He sees him somewhere else in the parking lot. It's the same van.
Well, he says things with his actions.
Yeah. Well, so it kind of reminded me of Rear Window and
Disturbia.
And Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf. And then the second part reminded me of Kurt Russell and Kathleen Quinlan in the movie Breakdown, which is where his wife is kidnapped by a semi-truck driver, and Kurt rescues her, and then the semi-truck follows him wherever they go, and tries to run him off the road. Okay, Marco, go ahead.
Oh, now we can review the movie. Okay, I thought this movie was pretty good. It's one of those movies that could probably be remade. Let's be honest. I mean, out of of course, I don't want it to be remade, because if they remake it, they're just gonna do what they did with that piece of shit Halloween 2018 and stuff like that. You know, they're gonna add all these stupid jump scares that aren't scary. They're gonna have all these teenagers in it. They're gonna have they're gonna make it PG-13. Oh wait, no, it's already PG. But the thing is that the director of this film, it's almost like he's Hitchcock Jr., but like not in a totally good way. It seems like he mastered a lot of Hitchcock's techniques, except for one thing, which is that Hitchcock's movies are a lot more adult. I mean, this movie's PG, and well, this year I watched Family Plot for the first time this year, and that movie is another PG movie, but it's made by Hitchcock, and that movie is a lot more adult than this movie, and it's still PG. So I really think that this movie missed the mark on several occasions. The biggest problem, I think, being that it has no violence the whole movie. I mean,
it's implied violence.
Yeah, it's a PG violence, and it's funny because then you go like watch Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, which is G-rated, and that movie has a ton of violence in it. So I really think that they missed the mark on that. The movie to me reminded me a lot of The Hitcher, but not in a good way. It's sort of, I mean, I complained a lot with The Hitcher about how there was a lack of violence. Well, this movie hardly has, I mean, it doesn't have any violence. There's a fake head at the end that drops down from the ceiling, and it looks fake as hell. It looks like they put together in a couple of hours with some cheap stuff from Michael's store, and it looks terrible. And then there's a lot of implication, though, right, Safi?
Right.
And another thing, too, is the fact that there's a serial killer who had a pig farm in Canada, and he would take hookers there and kill them and butcher them like pigs and sell their meat to the local stores. And so people were actually eating human meat, including him. And he would have parties there, all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
that sounds like Motel Hell.
Well, that's very reminiscent of this movie, because you have all that imagery. of that truck with the pig on the side of the truck. You have the stupid saying that Jamie Lee Curtis has to write for some reason, and there's a lot of implications with that. And I feel like if they really remade the movie and remade it with that in mind, that they could do a lot more scarier things with that kind of concept, and keeping that serial killer story in mind. And then you have the fact that it's a foreign film, which is hardly even noticeable. I mean, the movie is basically. I mean, it's funny too because it's like, is it? Do you really think that like all Australian films are like this, where you can't tell that they're Australian or what?
No, they're not. I mean, if you think about, let's say, Crocodile Dundee.
That's not an
Okay.
Australian movie. That's an Americanized movie.
Well, I'm talking about the scenery. That looks Australian.
Okay.
And then if you think about the Thornbirds, that looks Australian. A Thornbirds, if you didn't know, is a miniseries back in the 80s, I believe, starring Richard Chamberlain. And it's based on a book. And if you want to check it out, check the book and or the miniseries. Okay.
And so the landscape is a big part of this movie, though, and I think that like the movie, it has a lot of problems. I mean, the first time you watch it, you really just enjoy it because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But I really think that I don't think you could watch it again. I don't think you could go back and watch this again.
Well, I think I'll watch the first part to see how I messed up
and
on what happened.
And then you have the music. Ugh. The
Not
music.
so good.
Oh yeah, and remember when I was quote unquote racist for not liking Fargo season 4 just because it has a black person starring in it? Well, just think about how much I criticized this movie when you think about that, because the music was awful. It was like this babyish. I mean, the movie was already in trouble because it's a horror movie without violence, and that's like I don't want to make the comparison I would have made. That's like a Western movie without Western stuff in it. That's like a romantic comedy without romance in it. And I'm sick of, and I think that it's a huge problem too, this thing nowadays where people think like, oh, in order to have a scarier horror movie, you don't need to show the violence, you should just imply it. Because implying it makes you think about it. Because Hitchcock, he didn't show all the violence, and he didn't show this and that. Well, the thing is that the reason, I'm sick of talking about this too, because it's like a broken record. The reason why Hitchcock didn't show the violence was because the censors wouldn't allow him to. It's as simple as that. I mean, he had to do all that stuff not because he thought it would work better and he thought, oh, I'm going to do the artistic thing and I'm going to do this scene and make it so much more better than anything else could have been. No, he had to do that. He didn't have a choice. He had to use chocolate syrup as blood. But then you have this guy, Richard Franklin, and he makes this Road Games movie and purposefully doesn't have any violence in it, like he's trying to be Hitchcock, and he's trying to be like, oh, look, I'm a good filmmaker like him. And but the thing is that, like, Hitchcock would show violence. I mean, did you watch Frenzy?
I was thinking about that too, because this reminded me of Frenzy too.
And Frenzy is fantastic, and that movie shows a ton of violence. Kind of. I mean, it's overblown how much English people say how violent it is. But if you compare, it just shows that the director of this film really didn't understand Hitchcock fully. What do you think, Safi?
Well, I didn't see or read why he did what he did. But
Don't you have any original thoughts about anything in this movie? Don't I mean, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I thought it was
What do you
boring
think?
at the beginning.
Okay, say that. What else did you think about it?
Well,
No, no,
I don't
no.
understand.
Don't look at the paper.
I, I just thought I was really bored at the first, I don't know, maybe the first half.
It was boring.
And I just wanted to say, because I don't think we mentioned it, I think it's important. Jamie Lee Curtis, he nicknames her Hitch because she's hitchhiking.
Yeah, I know.
She looks a lot
Yeah.
like the girl at the motel
No.
at the beginning.
She doesn't
And well,
look anything like her.
he even thought, just like me, that she was the one who could have gotten killed. He had the girl in her. They kind of looked like the same size,
No.
and the hair looked a little bit alike. But
No.
anyway, well, that he said it too, Marco. If you look back at the movie, he said, "I thought you gotten killed by that guy."
Yeah, he drove for days and days without sleeping and without, all that type of stuff. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, he's a truck driver trying to get somewhere at a certain time. They're having a meat strike. I can't remember who in the process of butchering meat and putting it in the truck to market, but one of the groups of people involved in that process was on strike. And they kept, like a drive-by newspaper stand, it would say, these meat people are on strike. I mean, over and over, you heard it on the radio. I'm talking like a transistor radio, not a CB. Anyway, he sees her hitchhiking and he picks her up and he said, "I thought you were dead." And she's like, "What the hell?"
Well, because she's standing out on the side of the road for days and days.
Yeah.
And that guy doesn't even want to pick her up because that should tell you all you need to know, Safi. If you really thought she was the same woman, then she would have gotten killed by him, but she wasn't his type. She didn't look like a whore.
Right.
She was dressed like a person.
Well, like a
so,
hippie kind of girl.
Well, yeah. And then she had
student.
This was probably one of her best films, Jamie Lee Curtis, because she's not just screaming the whole movie.
No, she's not. She actually is pretty calm, and she acts like his friend. And although they tried to make it kind of quote romantic at the
There's
end,
no romance.
there's no romance. They're friends.
Trash.
They're just friends. But I just want to make sure that you understood. She did finally come into the movie. Is about halfway through, and she stays with him the rest of the movie, except, well, should we say what happens?
No, I think
Okay,
we should
we won't, but anyway.
review the movie because
Well, it didn't for me. It didn't get good until the middle to the end, and it kind of got better and better and better until there's this huge part at the end that I've never seen anything like it before. It's kind of like an action sequence, horror, and kind of actually comedic because of the cops. What happened was I don't know how he did it, but the van guy somehow found out his name and that he was driving this truck, and he used that, and he gave his license to the hotel guy at the motel, whatever he was.
that was really creepy actually, because the killer he's sitting there just sitting there
staring,
and then the killer looks over, and it's like he could have looked at anyone's car.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck? Like, what's up with this guy? I mean, the killer is probably one of the best parts of the movie, even though he doesn't say a word the whole movie. I mean, he's a stunt man, so he did a fantastic job with the stunts. And I really think that the best parts of the movie would be the lighting. I mean, the lighting was really good. I mean, there's a part at the end, which I'm not spoiling anything, unlike Safi, but there's a part at the end. there's a part at the end where they light the killer exactly like they lit Norman Bates when he's stabbing. Talk about spoilers. When he's stabbing Janet Leigh in Psycho in the shower, to where you can't see his face, and he's just this black figure surrounded by light. And I thought that was really good lighting. And then there's a scene where he's driving, and it becomes nighttime, and everything gets all red, and like it, cause like the sunset, and it looks really good. I mean, just imagine if the whole movie was as good as that. And
That's
then
a shame,
yeah,
actually.
and then the acting from the main guy. He learned to drive a truck just to do this movie.
That's Stacy
And
Keach.
he did a phenomenal job too. And then the killer, and I hated the music though. I mean, the music just ugh.
As you can tell, we've both been in musical groups, and music is really, well, if you really pay attention, music
Well,
can really forward a story.
If you look at
It can-
Hitchcock,
Yeah, well, Hitchcock
Hitchcock,
is a great example. It kind of
yeah.
advances the story without
Yeah.
a word. It's just the music. It somehow gets a mood or an attitude, or it just adds something that increases the feeling that you're getting. You're scared, or
It
you're
did-
anxious, or
it did do that in this movie a little bit, because there would be, I know you probably couldn't hear it because you don't have earphones, or did you wear earphones to watch the movie?
I don't know.
Okay, well, if you had, something really evil would happen, and when something evil would happen, they would play just like a few guitar strings, and I thought it had a very sinister sound to it, and I thought that's a really creepy noise, and like it's almost like you're using the piano strings to make the music, like it's like a subconscious thing about how he uses the string to strangle. And so I thought
Piano wire.
I thought that was really good. Did you ever notice that, Sophie?
They kept showing what he uses to. He strangles his victims, and what they would show, they wouldn't show him actually doing too much. That just a little bit, just
no,
a
they
little.
didn't show anything. Come on.
Well,
Sophie.
he tried with somebody else in the end. They showed him.
Well, that's because that was a battle.
Now that was the battle, but and leading up to that, way in the end, you would just see I mean, those things are razor sharp, and he was using a piano wire, and I guess that was his weapon of choice. This piano wire, you get up behind somebody, put it around their neck, and kill them, strangle them. It probably cut through their neck too. It looks so sharp. So.
Well, I had a lot of questions about the details of his procedures, because he would cut up the bodies and bury the parts all over the landscape. And so how did he cut the body parts up?
He would have had to cut them up. Well, at least the place that we saw in the motel room.
What instrument?
In the bathroom.
What instrument could he have used? Because
Well, that's a good question. See, that's kind of a missing detail.
did he have a saw, or what? Like that was kind of missing for me, because
that's true.
It was really sort of like a generic, like, oh, he's a killer who chops up people and buries the body parts. And I thought it was funny too, because didn't that remind you of Jeepers Creepers?
Well, it reminds me of Rear Window again, because remember he sees him through the window, Jimmy Stewart, and he has a saw.
Yeah, but
we
saw
saw
that. We saw.
Well, yeah,
that stuff.
we got to. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. There wasn't a big deal made out of it, because we didn't see him sawing anybody up, because it was in the bathroom. He closed the door, but we could see him in the daylight in his viewfinders, the saw and something else. He goes, why does a jewelry salesman have a saw? In an apartment in the city? What would you be doing? I mean, really, truthfully, what would you be doing if you lived in an apartment in the middle of the city with a saw? You wouldn't probably own one. So I think he was relatively justified for wondering about that.
I'm glad that the killer didn't talk, though, because
it made him scarier.
I feel like this is like one of the only times where it's actually worked, where he doesn't say anything and all that kind of stuff. And if there's anything else, not really. I do think that the movie is boring, and I think that it has some really good moments and could be remade to be a better movie, because I really think that it could have been a lot better, but I can see all the good stuff in it that made it really good still. Like all those scenes, like with the boat scene, there's this part where he's having a problem with this old man who has a boat, and this old man just refuses to let the guy pass him. And so
which is really dumb
yeah,
to do with a semi.
yeah, he chooses to fuck with a truck driver.
He tries to
is,
block him
yeah.
everywhere he tries to turn. It's
and
very
so,
dangerous.
And it's such a satisfying moment. The truck driver just completely destroys his boat and crushes it. And I thought that was cool.
Well, it was almost a handmade boat, because when it got destroyed, it just like tore apart like it was made out of toothpicks. It was really weird. So it must have been not even a legitimate boat. It must have been a prop that was made to look like a boat, but not very well made.
So what are your closing thoughts, Safi?
Well, like I said, I think it's boring all the way up to like the middle, and as it went on, it got better and better and better until it ended in this big scene between the truck driver Quid and the murderer and some cops. It's so, you got to see it, because it's really good. I mean, there isn't any explosions. There's no shooting from some big guns. There's no fires. But it's still really good and effective. And
Yeah.
And like Marco said a little while ago, that at the very end, it was stupid. It's just a stupid scene. I mean, yeah, like the last scene. It's stupid, and the music is horrible. You know what it reminded me of? Elevator music.
No way. Elevator music is a lot better than that, Safi.
Well, some of the elevator music isn't. And it was awful. It was dull. It was like something somebody made up at the last minute.
How about music you hear in the store?
I don't hear anymore. Well, they don't. I don't.
Back then, though. Didn't you hear music in the store back then?
Yeah, we used to hear music. They used to play. Now they just make announcements about wearing a mask.
I think they said online. Well, it doesn't matter. But it was like kids' movie music.
And I don't know what it was. Well, it was 70s. It was 70s music or something. It really boring, dull music that nobody cares about.
I would never show this to a kid, though, because it's PG.
Well, the thing with the beginning with the motel probably wouldn't be good. Maybe.
No, not with that, but just the whole movie.
Poor kid.
The whole movie has a lot of implication. It's a very suspenseful movie, and the way that people treat him, all these Australian people, it really doesn't want to make you go to Australia.
Which is terrible, because it's a really nice place.
I mean, it makes the place look like hell.
Well, they're in southern Australia. I don't know what southern Australia is like, but I guess I do from watching the movie, because it really did take place there.
It's hell.
It looks all like, it's not even a nice desert. It just looks scruffy and crappy.
And you have these fat people who go around like accusing you of murder, and you have these
without any proof.
You have these idiot bikers who get mad or like can't even talk and have a conversation. Like these people are evil.
Well, they're just dumb.
I'm gonna spoil just one scene. There's a part where his dog gets attacked off screen by the killer.
And I don't like that.
There's people who are literally just standing there outside watching this happen and don't give a flying fuck about it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I thought, these are disgusting people. And
then they say something to him. That the bartender says something like, what does he say? I don't know, but he said something about his dog. Oh, dogs, if they're let to run loose outside, they can get shot. And he's like, you people wouldn't dare, or something. And he ran out there, and he called the dog. I guess he let the dog, I don't know what he kept doing. He kept leaving his truck door open.
Yeah, it was really.
Which I didn't get that, because who would leave their car or truck door open anywhere in some strange place, especially when you keep running into that dumb van driver. And he was calling all over for his dog, and then he ran to the cab of his truck. Dog's in there, but he's acting funny.
Well, he got strangled a little bit.
Yeah,
and there were people who literally just stood there and watched.
And he was scared and sad.
And I know that sounds a little racist. These are disgusting people. But I'm talking about from what I saw in this movie.
Well, they look like Twilight Zone people, the way
Yeah.
they were acting. And it's not looks, really. It's the acting.
They were like ghosts.
What they were saying. It was almost unreal.
Yeah.
Like they were aliens. I don't know. It's really weird.
And, like, there was nobody good. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, she was kind of weird, too. I mean, her character was just...
But she was likable, though.
She's a likable goofball.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, the only normal person in the whole movie is the main guy. So.
And he was an independent truck driver.
Yeah.
And he was just laid back and just wanted to do his job. And he had this dog, and he loved the dog, and he tried to entertain himself while he drove because he could get sleepy. He played the harmonica, like I said. He had a transistor radio, so he'd listen to the news, and in his cab, he could sleep. And I mean, he was all set up as much as he could be. And all these other people are like weird, suspicious, mean, unhelpful, anything bad you could come up with. That's what they were. And he wasn't doing anything wrong to them at all.
He's just sitting around eating celery sticks and playing games in his truck. So what would you rate this movie, Safi?
Well, I gave it, I don't know the name of it. It's kind of like a chocolate dessert. And the top of it would be meringue and whipped cream that didn't taste like much. That would be the first half of the movie. And then underneath it is this chocolate pudding like layer with like a graham cracker or a chocolate cookie crust. And that would be the movie getting better and better, and then you reach the cookie crust mixed with the chocolate pudding, and then all 4 layers, whatever. And, well, you have I told you, the meringue, the whipped cream, the chocolate pudding, and the crust. And you come into like a crescendo, into a big moment, which I said was really the best part of the whole movie, I thought. And that's what I rated it.
Well, I would rate it, when I was a kid, I would eat a lot of different breakfasts, because I think breakfast is probably the worst meal. Breakfast is probably the worst meal, because it's like, what do you eat? What's the perfect food? Because, like, I have a little bit of a stomach acid problem. So if I eat something, it might give me stomach acid. It'll make me irritated, because it's like it's distracting me from other things, and it's just irritating. But I would eat breakfast bars sometimes for a few years or so, and that was probably one of the worst breakfasts. And I would rate this movie a couple of breakfast bars, because they have some good inside them. I mean, it tastes okay. It kind of tastes like a Pop-Tart with cardboard shavings on it, and instead of the frosting. I mean, the outside gives you terrible stomach acid, and it's just not very satisfying. It's not healthy, but it's pretty good overall, and it's just something that you eat and it goes right through you, and it's not healthy for you. And that's what I think that this movie is. It's very light. It's very inoffensive. Well, actually, it is offensive in some ways, since the people are so evil. I mean, everyone in the movie is evil. And I would say everyone in the movie represents the outside of the bar. And then the inside of the breakfast bar, that strawberry filling or the blueberry filling, that represents the lighting and the main character and the villain. and they're the best parts of the movie. But I could see this movie being remade and being remade 1,000 times better. And so, yeah, that's what I gotta say.
All right.
Well,
I think that's it.
what should people do, Safi?
I think they should try to like and subscribe.
Or dislike.
And make a comment or two if you want.
And if your comment pisses me off, you're going to be permanently blocked from commenting on the channel. So
I'm sure nothing like that would ever happen.
Oh, it's already happened. I had to ban a bunch of people for the Fargo review because I can tell what people watch, and so I see what they watch, how many minutes, and that video has over 500 something views. But there's no way that these people actually watched the video, because they probably just watched the opening first minute or so, and they stopped. And so, I can tell. And I hope this video gets views, because this movie does deserve some attention. It is the first foreign film, technically, that we've both reviewed on our channel.
Right.
You know, we didn't do a review of that shitty movie Parasite, which won Best Picture twice. And in my opinion, this movie should have won Best Picture over Parasite if they were in the same year.
They weren't in the same year, and he knows that.
Because this movie is 1,000,000 times better than Parasite. And come on, that ending is way better than Parasite's ending, Safi.
I don't know.
Way better. Well, not the ending, but the the climax part with the fight and everything. That's way better than that awful Parasite ending.
That's because it was so unique.
Yeah.
It was very, very unique, and I hope that people somehow, some of them, agree with me, because there just isn't the usual boring thing like lots of guns and explosions, car chases, fires. No, completely different.
That's it. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.